I'd just like to narrate a piece I wrote about beating racism. Beating racism. It's not going to happen. You can't fight racism in the West, just like you can't fight Islamophobia or sexism or whatever else isms. It's way too big to fight. That's why we continuously hear either a racist slur or an Islamophobic one. And the ones we hear it from are the ones who either say it by the slip of a tongue or by intention. And the ones that stay quiet are the ones that usually don't have the courage to say it because they might be threatened by repercussions of some sort. Everyone will have different set of views and prejudices towards what is foreign and not in agreement with the values of theirs. This includes LGBTIQ rights, Sharia law, or whatever else it may be, like communism or Nazism or right-wing politics, white nationalism, or Christian fundamentalism, or even secular liberal fundamentalism. Everyone will have their differences, and as some opinions do change, some opinions will not change. So no matter how much education is taught surrounding to accept the other for what they are and learn to live with differences, it will never happen, as people will always contest what is for them the superior ideology. This is the life of this world. People need to accept it for what it is. In the end, it's who gets the strongest voice, who gets the most media control, who advances the most in the method of expansionism, will be the alpha male in the group. Thus, there is no such thing as world peace. Peace will never be part of this world. It is not meant to be that way, and whoever tries to claim it's achievable with all these differences is either lying to themselves or just being a fool. We know peace is very temporary, and it's just a bandage over the wound. Look at Ukraine and Russia, for example. Both are predominantly white, both follow the same religion, both almost follow the same ideological Western beliefs with some differences, and despite this, are killing one another over land grab and dominance over the region. Look at the USA, the land of the free as they call it. We are 50 to 100 years into Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and we still have racism and white nationalism in America, probably stronger than ever before, which gave rise to BLM movements. How has this happened? Despite years to decades long of education and protests for black rights. Remove all the things like media, surveillance, technology, remove modernism and the Industrial Revolution. Bring us back to a time where there was no modern development. I can assure you, those white people living in America today, acting all civilized, will go back to Africa and reintroduce colonial slavery to re-advance their nations on the blood of slavery. The same Human Rights Watch in our modern world that turned a blind eye to the hanging of Saddam Hussein, killed in the most barbaric ways. Who would have thought capital punishment that's seen as barbaric method was apparently now acceptable for someone like Saddam? What happened to Western moral values? what happened about being against public executions? Did human rights and our morals simply just change overnight? It goes to show that they don't even believe in what they preach about being modern and progressive. The alpha male is the white race in America. You can't fight against it. It's a lost battle. People just don't want to accept the reality, and so they live in a fantasy that they have morally progressed and changed. They think that by electing a black president, it's going to make all the racism go away. But it didn't, did it? Right after Obama came, Trump, and he told Americans he will make America great again. Perhaps what he meant by great again was to keep the legacy of white presidency. And then came how his whole effort was to build a wall to keep the Mexicans out, while the white race had no problem invading the lands of the indigenous throughout the globe under what is called white colonial expansionism. Of course, when they are in power and have the superior dominance, and when they are reminded of the past genocide, they simply just say, sorry, and that was the past. I say it's a convenient way of saying, too bad, it is what it is, now deal with it. The same folks haven't really stopped with their expansionism mentality. When they invaded Afghanistan to turn that Islamic culture to one that is in line with secular liberal Western values. The same folks that accuse Islam for spreading by the sword. They didn't care about keeping their values to themselves, rather they wished to impose it on other foreign values, because they believed their values were superior. As a result, millions of people have been killed from the Middle East to Afghanistan in the so-called war on terror. It wasn't really about removing Osama bin Laden, it was about Western expansionism. You don't want liberal secular democracy? Sure, we'll now bring it to you with war and aggression and make sure you accept it. So we haven't changed from the past. We are all expansionists under different names. Before it was called colonialism, now it's called foreign policy or foreign interests. Before it was called Nazism, now it's called white nationalism. Every culture will in a way try and impose its values on the rest of the world. Be it Islamic, be it Westernism, it seems this dominance behavior is just part of human makeup, just like it exists in the animal kingdom, how beasts can be territorial with the dominant alpha male. The weaker animals get eaten up by the bigger, stronger, faster predators, and so forth go on to live and procreate. It is what it is. It's the cycle of life. I am not suggesting we don't educate, we don't share our values and beliefs. I'm not saying we shouldn't stamp out things we object. What I'm saying is let's stop being hypocrites. We all live in some way, all want the world to be in line with our ideologies that come in many forms. And please, let's stop pretending to make this world a heaven. It will never be that. This is part of the trials and tribulations of this world. Let's stop pretending we can stamp out racism. Racism will always be part of this world, just as good and evil is part of this world. We will never defeat racism or Islamophobia, just as we won't be able to defeat many other ideologies. That is just the way it is. Trying to beat racism or Islamophobia will only lead to disappointment. That's like trying to turn this world into a paradise. It's just not going to happen. My final thoughts: stop stressing over what you can't control. Live your life to serve God and better yourself as a human being. Leave the affairs to God Almighty, who is true judge and king. Don't look for justice in this world. If you do, you'll always be disappointed. As believers, we believe true justice will be served on the day of judgment, and we shall all be held accountable for our own deeds. Yes, strive to try and make the world a better world, but don't expect perfection. Don't expect it all to go away. That's just isn't going to happen. We have all come into this world to be tested with all the trials of good and evil. Embrace it. Do your own thing to change what you see wrong, and what you cannot, leave it to God. Don't busy yourself over what you cannot control. It will consume you and darken your heart towards humanity. Even if this world was as we wanted it to be, no racism, no murder, no injustice, God will still create beings that will commit racism and murder and injustice in order to test your faith. It's just the way it is.